you are not traditionally a video game composer.
No, I'm not. Is this working?
There we go.
Perfect. I'm the imposter here.
You are not an imposter. You are a creator just like everybody else. But you typically work in, from what I gather, a lot of British dramas, docu-series. You had a very powerful documentary about warfare in Syria.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
That's been on your recent roster. So I'm just curious about this transition of sorts that you've made.
Okay, so I've been scoring linear film and TV for the last 20 years. And I actually, it's not quite true, this is not quite my first game, because I started off as a sound designer on feature films, and I transitioned into working for a games publisher in the UK over 20 years ago, doing sound effects for video games. And it was a brief period that I flirted with, and a little bit of music. But with technology, the industry's changed so much. You know, it's constantly evolving technically. So my career digressed into writing music for film and TV. And then suddenly, about 3 years ago, I got this BAFTA Breakthrough Brit accolade. And it put me on the radar of a lot of people in the industry. And I got this Twitter message from Sam Barlow, the director, developer of Telling Lies. And he said, "Would you like to write the music for an interactive movie video game?" And I thought it was a friend playing a prank on me. I said, "Nobody gives you a job off Twitter." You know? And he said, "Okay, look, I'll be in touch in a few months when I've signed the contract." And he disappeared, and I forgot all about it. And then, sure enough, 4 months later, he contacted me and said, "We're on, contract signed, let's do this thing." And actually, for me, it was a dream project, because I really, truly believe that the future of entertainment is this hybrid form of sophisticated narrative storytelling in video games, combined with live action acting, drama, very sophisticated storytelling. And that's what Telling Lies is. And so Sam wanted someone with linear cinematic storytelling sensibilities, as opposed to a video games composer who would come at it from a totally different approach.
I can see why he was drawn to you for this particular project. Can you talk a little bit about Telling Lies, the game that we're going to see a little bit of in a second, and just the structure of it?
Yeah. Okay, so Telling Lies is it's a very, very loosely, it's about an FBI agent. You have 4 main core characters. Obviously there's a larger cast there, but you've got 4 main characters, and everyone is manipulating everyone. There is a lot of deception. It's about human relationships. It's about the human psyche, and you're delving into these characters. So you have a database of about 9-10 hours worth of live action scenes, like a film. If you think about Bandersnatch, Black Mirror episode on Netflix. So there are new ways of telling stories, and obviously Austin, his game Erica is a new way of storytelling as well. So we both come out at the same time. But with Telling Lies, Sam has developed this unique approach to narrative storytelling, where you've got these characters, double undercover, triple undercover agents, and so with the role of the music is more cinematic in terms of, I use the London Contemporary Orchestra, and I wanted to get inside the minds of these characters. So where you don't have music is as important as where you do have music, and for me, silence is music as well. And so I decided to write a theme for each character. And that theme represented, it's a bit like an obituary. You know, when you have someone's obituary there, you're summing up their life in 100 words. How do you do that, you know? And in a way, I had to sum up a person's character, multifaceted, complex characters, in a single piece of music. And that was hard, and I spent 18 months working on it. So it was a long process, going backwards and forwards, coming up with this concept. And the way that I decided to, in terms of palette of sounds, I wanted to bring in the London Contemporary Orchestra. So because I don't score games, I just created my own way of doing things, which was really fresh and different. And so I wanted to be true to the characters, and in order to do that, I wanted to not use any electronics. I wanted to use the raw acoustic, pure acoustic sounds. When you're watching these characters, you're privy to their private conversations. You feel you shouldn't be there. You're watching stuff that you're not, it's all in secret. You're not meant to be watching it, because it's all CCTV footage and mobile phone footage. And you're piecing this mystery together, because it's non-linear. And so with the music, you're getting in, I had to get inside and inhabit the characters, which was quite a fascinating approach.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's take a look at a scene from Telling Lies.
Hey. No one is listening.
They're after me, and this isn't gonna end.
That's really cool. It's something that, since I've started playing it, it's completely made me paranoid. Got out the Post-it, and like a good person put it over my webcam so that I wouldn't stress out anymore. Of course, these are, in most cases, a consensual conversation over video that's being filmed. But I was talking to somebody who doesn't work in this space, but is a music creator, about writing for games, and they were saying the idea of letting go of the path in the process of the creation of interactive music, that they found that idea stressful, that they felt like they were losing control of the user experience, where you come from a linear side with film and television. Did you find, is there a lot of interactivity? I mean, the process for the player is very interactive, but how is your music reacting to the players?
You know, I think in terms of the difference between scoring for film and games, I didn't, with this, there wasn't much of a difference in that approach, but there were differences, because normally, you know, with film, for example, you're scoring the action. You know, you've got all your hit points and you're making things very explicit, and with this, we were scoring the subtext and the hidden side of what's going on. You know, the stuff that's not on screen, and that is also an aspect of storytelling in film that I wanted to bring out as well. So, for example, if you have a scene with the way the music's implemented, the dynamic side, if you're onto something, you've got a character, and when you see that character, elements of their theme may come creeping in subconsciously, and you're not even aware of it, you know. It's very subtle, and so it comes in, and if it's quite a menacing scene, you know, dark scene, you've got their theme and their music coming in. Then there may be a shift in tone, and something else may come up on screen. There may be quite a light-hearted comical thing that happens, a fun moment. But that dark theme may carry on underneath, and it gives it a totally different context. You know, when then you're reading things into it psychologically that you wouldn't necessarily read. So that was interesting. I didn't see any visuals, so I got given a 260-page script to work from. And so that for me was very different from scoring for film. And it was quite scary to begin with. I thought, well, how do I do this? You know, because if you put visuals in front of me, I know exactly what to do when I see pictures. But I was shooting in the dark. But Sam was fantastic, because he'd give me these really amazing illustrative analogies and in-depth character notes. So he'd give me notes like a feature film. He'd say, this is the character and what they like to eat as a child and the movies that they liked. This is their backstory, even if you don't see it in the game. He'd develop these rich characters, and so he'd feed me all this information, which helped me form a mental picture in my mind musically. So that was quite fascinating. And then working on it for such a long period of time, normally I get film schedules where I work very fast, and I go, okay, I've got to score 90 minutes of music in 5 weeks. And with this, I spent a year and a half on writing a limited amount of music. And so I'd go backwards and forwards, and I'd score a theme, and then 2 months later come back to it and go, no, I'm not happy with it, I'm going to do it again. And so that was it was really liberating and wonderful in that regard.
That's so great. Now, in the vein of choose your own adventure games, we have Austin Wintory down on the end, who is known for his work on Flow and Journey and Assassin's Creed Syndicate, all the banner sagas. You're definitely a video game composer with other talents as well. Your choose your own adventure game that you've been working on, am I right that Erica took 4 years to get to the end?
Something like that. I can't remember. One of these days I'm going to actually go and look at the calendar and just solve this, but it's 3 or 4 years. It's definitely not less than 3, but it was a good long while. But it was odd because normally games are not so segmented into pre-production, production, post-production the way a movie is, and therefore it's just a continuous kind of river of development where you're able to participate in varying degrees throughout. But this one, by virtue of it also, like Telling Lies, relying on footage shot on a set with props and costumes and actors, it did have much more of a pre-production, production, post-production. And so, if let's say it was 3 years, I think 2 years of that was pre-production. So it was like, make tiny little incremental steps and then suddenly go as fast as possible. Even though it still was, 9 months or something of go fast as possible, which is still luxurious compared to films. It's not luxurious compared to a lot of others. And also because the complexity of this was astronomically beyond anything I've ever attempted before. So it felt like there's no time. You can tell me I have 100 years and I'll feel screwed.
Can you tell us a little bit about the game and then we'll watch a clip?
Yeah, sure. Also, I'm gonna disagree with your mysterious quoted friend about losing control, because I would say at most when you're writing a game score, with the user experience that you said we lose control of, I actually think it's more that we are sharing control of the user experience with the player or the listener or whatever, because it's not that, yeah, good. Well, there is such a thing as like completely granularized, procedurally generated, algorithmically created music that you effectively have no control over. But even then, someone's authoring those algorithms, and that is not without control also. But that would be the least, and this is far from that. I mean, we're still recording orchestras and musicians, and so it's like even if it's a toolkit that's being disassembled and reassembled by the game engine, it's doing so per your instructions. So to me, it's like asking the player, pull up a seat to the table and let's riff on how this ought to play out, which is very different from just spilling a bunch of Legos and saying, make whatever you want. Even then though, you're giving them Legos, you're giving them something. So yeah, I think complete and total lack of authorial control is, I don't even know, that's like you're into John Cage territory basically of like, I'll just not make the game. Then they'll have total control over their life. That's to me the only way to actually achieve that. I was sitting here like, I don't want to interrupt, but I have an opinion about that quote. So yes, I'm getting that off my chest. Therapy is now over, and Erica.
Because I feel like you would be cranking up the control. You wouldn't be losing control. You would be on control dialed up to the 10th degree.
It depends. It's very context specific because sometimes it is that. Sometimes it is you controlling things vastly beyond what conventional wisdom would suggest. Other times it's yielding control. There's also a certain amount of smoke and mirrors where you're making the player think they have control. I mean, there's so many times where if you write music that's not flat,